Hey guys, welcome back. Today I need to start thinking about electrics. I'm keeping the system relatively simple. I'm not putting anything fancy in it. I'm not putting big leisure batteries in or anything like that. What I'm just going to do is add, well, I say John, but I will show you how we're doing it, is adding a separate fuse box under the bonnet for the electrics in the back of the vehicle, and we will just run the electrics from the main battery because I'm keeping everything, like I said, very simple. All there will be is things like USB chargers, and I have two of these very flush ceiling lights to fit in the center, well, kind of interspersed across the center of the ceiling. We also have a fan for the roof, which is currently in parts. This is the inside. This is the middle of said fan, and the dome for the top. John has been investigating it and looking at how to attach it to the roof. So it's just a very basic fan. It's one of these that have kind of like a computer fan in them, and there is a switch on the inside so you can switch it on and off. I wouldn't normally have bothered really for a van this size. Well, I don't know, maybe I would have, I'm not sure. But the van came with a hole already cut out in the roof, which has been patched up with basically a piece of plastic. So a previous owner, I'm not sure if we've had one or two owners, I can't remember, previous owners, has had a fan in the roof and obviously didn't like it and has patched it up, took it out and patched it up. This sits quite proud, and we've had to take the back roof bar off to make some adjustments to it to fit the height of this fan, and the hole needed to fit this fan through is actually, I think, half an inch bigger than the hole that is already there. So I suspect they had one of those rotary fans that whiz around when you drive, which worked to a certain degree, but obviously didn't work for the purpose that the previous owner had it for and didn't like it. So this one, like I said, has a tube for extending it. It has an outside cover, it has a mesh on it, and the inside part is just open vented with a switch for on and off. It's supposed to have 2-speed. We don't think it actually does work with 2-speed. It was really cheap, and I think what I will do is make like a little cover to go over this when it is not in use, so that there isn't any unnecessary drafts or if I'm parked in a windy location. Like I said, I'm going to keep the main electronics really simple. Most of my gadgets kind of run on USB anyway, so I will put multiple USB charging ports. I think there'll be one over here for the kitchen side. We have a USB rechargeable tap for the Land Rover when we convert that into a camper. I'm not sure if I'm going to be using that yet or whether I will use a manual foot pump, but there will be charging ports for anything I might need here, and I will put charging ports on the side where the bed will be, either at the tailgate end or at the driver's end, I'm not sure which, or maybe even both. I could put both. And other than that, my lights will be the 2 ceiling lights and fairy lights for evening ambient use. I think the main lights will mostly be for practical use, like cleaning out the van, that sort of thing. I will of course leave any links for anything that I'm using down in the description box as best I can, either what I'm using or as close as I can possibly find. And now that it has dried out outside and the van is hopefully dry, we can start looking at this hole and making it larger to fit this fan. You can see up here where the previous vent has been, and they've just covered it with a piece of plastic and sealed it on. And you can also, well, you can't really see from here, but this is wider than the hole that's underneath here. So instead of having to worry about it sitting up on the ridges and having to pack it, we've just cut two edges off of the outer ring of this, so not taking off where the screws are. Made sure it's the side where there is no screws. It would have been like the equivalent of this here, and this fits in perfect. So now just need to silicone this in and fasten it down. The electrics are starting to go in now. Most of this I'm leaving for John to do actually, but I'll explain what's been done so far. So the vent has been wired up. It's actually not connected at the moment, but there is cabling put in for it, and we've tested it and it does work. So we have live and earth, or return, or neutral, depending upon your terminology, going to and from the vent, and the cables are passing through the underneath of the roof ribs all the way down to the front of the van. One of these is for the vent and the other one is for my ceiling lights. There'll be one going in here and one going, actually no, one going in here and one going in towards the front. So we will cut the wire, attach a light, and then there'll be a wire that join them together, one of these two, whichever one it is. We have yet to put in a switch wire for the lights. The switch for the vent is already on the vent. After they reach the headliner, the cable goes down the headliner to the side of the headliner, and then it is running underneath the headliner, which I'm not sure if you can see on camera, all the way to the front, and then you can see the cables in there if the camera will focus. The cables run all the way down the edge of the roof liner here, between the body and the headliner or the plastic once we get to the front, all the way down here, and then it threads down behind all the dash. John didn't have to take the dash out for this, he just forced it down until the cable came out underneath here, somewhere under there, which I don't think the camera will pick up, but it did come out through the gap up there. John couldn't get the cable to feed through from this side where he wanted it, and he couldn't get it to feed through from the engine side either. So what he did was get a stiffer piece of cable and threaded it through from the engine side into the cab, taped them together and pulled the red and black cable end through to the engine side. And the cables come through the rubber gasket at the front. The main cables go through in one hole, and he's poked another hole through and temporarily placed a piece of black tubing just so that it makes it easier to thread the cables through whilst it's being wired. He will be taking this off, cutting it off and adding proper trunking afterwards. So the cables come through and into the new fuse box, which has been mounted on here. I actually don't know what this is, and John's gone to work so I can't ask him what it is. But the new fuse board is mounted here, and it's attached to the battery via this red cable, and attached to, where did he say he'd attached it to? And he has attached it to the earthing point just behind it there. So far I only have in, well, the fuses aren't in yet, but I have connections for the roof lights and, well, it says fan override, but that's the only sticker that was close enough. So we have the fan and the overhead roof lights in the fuse box. The cable that we're using is 16 AWG, and I bought 100 feet, like 30 meters of this. I'm pretty sure that's more than enough. So I've had to use a stiff piece of wire to thread through because the cable was just catching on my insulation. Thread it through backwards and just taped it on the end and be able to pull the actual electrical cable through. So I want to protect the wires where they've gone through the roof. The edges of the metal are a little bit sharp, and I noticed they were starting to rub on the casing of the wire. So I've got some old electrical cable. I'm stripping the outer part off and putting lengths of it between the wires and the metal rib, and just kind of folding it up, well, just naturally curving it around, and I'm going to put some electrical tape over that just to hold it in place so it doesn't fall off. So the lights are all wired up now and connected to each other, and there is a cable that runs into here, and there's a connector block which attaches to the switch cable, which you won't be able to see, but it runs down under the headliner and comes out here, and it will be tucked behind this rubber trim. And then down here John has drilled a hole in here and brought the cable out here for the switch for the lights. So the last of the electrics is now to go in. That's, well, these USB ports. They have front covers. So I have two of these double USB ports, one each for each back corner pillar. So John's just going to solder these in, and these will fit nicely into these little, I can't remember what John called them, little bits of wood anyway. Originally I was going to have these as wood coloured, like plywood, and then varnished, but the plywood's such poor condition that we can get up here that it just looked terrible. We have basically, you can buy plywood, not birch plywood, just plywood. It has no, it's not maple, it's not birch, it's just plywood. It'd be very difficult, I think, to get nice decent quality plywood here on the island, but I wanted that so that this beige surround would kind of recess into the wood, but it doesn't matter, it'll still look fun, it'll still match everything else that's in here. And then all the electrics for now is done, unless I put more chargers in the front, but that'll be for a later project. Okay, so John has added some extra switches at the side of each of the USB charger points, because when this is on, basically this little blue light is on constantly, and although it uses very little power, it's just something extra draining the battery. Plus the little blue light shining here is going to be really annoying. So at least those can be switched off when they're not in use. So that is all the electrics done in here now, and time to get this cupboard and bed fitted in so it can be used. Okay, thank you for watching. Bye bye.